One day we'll all be replaced as leaders with younger talent who is emerging from our wake. However, first we need to find this talent, retain it, and grow it so that it becomes the model which we are looking for. Sometimes it's easy, other times it's tough and requires not just leadership, but leadership with a twist. Today, my guest Dominique and I discuss topics such as recognizing high performers in your team, analyzing high performers' strengths, applying strategies to challenge them, amongst many other topics. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 118, Leading with a Twist with Dominique. Welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy, and thanks for coming out, you leader, because you're here because you want to improve your leadership skills. And that's one of three domains, if not all three domains, shall we? Leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. And here at Moving Forward Leadership, I focus on those three domains to help you perform better, to help you build those strong connections and those bonds with your team, and to help you get and increase the output of the organization you work and live in. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's so great to have you here. And today we're talking about one of the core tenets of leadership, developing others, finding them and developing them to become the future leaders. I often say that the future leaders of an organization is one of the core reasons that we are leaders, that we need to be at the top of our game to help them one day replace us. Because let's face it, we all won't be in our roles forever. One day, one way or another, we will leave it. So that's why it's important. That's why this talk is so crucial. And my guest today, Dominique, is a superstar in this area. At her core, she believes leadership is all about growth opportunities. We need to encourage innovation in our teams, unleash creativity, and demonstrate trust. She combines extensive experience in educational leadership in Europe, Asia, the US, and takes the lessons learned from coaching emerging leaders, leading countless group experiences to challenge and support high performers as they step into their powerful leadership platform. She's the director of coaching for Medley, a New York City-based startup that harnesses the power of groups to spark growth, and she also runs her own company, Lead with a Twist. Through both these growth-minded or high-impact organizations, she designs and facilitates experiences that lead individuals to embody the qualities needed to succeed in fast-moving industries. Whoo! If that doesn't pique your interest, if you're in a position where you have high performers or you're looking for your high performers, then you're at the right place. So let's leave it there, shall we? Let's get to the meat. Let's get to the goods. Let's get to you listening to my conversation with Dominique and I discussing how to lead with a twist. Dominique, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
So, from time to time, I throw out awards. I'm going to give you one tonight. And that is, you have the most interesting accent that I've had on. Beating out Colin Ellis, who was on the show probably about 10 episodes prior to yours, who had a Brit mixed with an Australian one. But I can, every now and then, I hear your French twang in there.
You'll hear it.
Bienvenue au Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. My wife is actually Francophone, so I do speak a bit of French.
That was good.
Yeah. But no, it's great. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited, and you'll definitely hear the accents. There are words that I just cannot pronounce. So I'll speak, relatively okay, and then something will come out. So
I would actually probably be fairly comfortable to do this in French, but my entire listening audience is English, so they probably drop me pretty quick.
That's fair. And to be fair, I'd probably find it really hard to do it in French just because a lot of the leadership vocabulary I've always used in English. I've always worked in English. Yes. I left France when I was 18. So yeah, let's stick to English.
Let's stick to English. All right, let's get on with the show. You got an interesting background. And the one thing that's like jumping out at me is education leadership. So what is that? What does it mean to be in it? And I guess even before that, is how did you get into it in the first place?
So let me go with that second question first. I always wanted to be a teacher when I was a kid. And so I became a teacher. And I got into international schools about 3 years after I started teaching. So moved around, went to different schools, and when I moved to Manila, Philippines, I worked at a school called the British School Manila, and they had offered me a leadership position. So I started working in administration in schools, and educational leadership is basically learning how to run schools. So so you're probably referring to my master's, and it's basically a master's in leadership, but with a focus on running schools. So the goal number one, where in a corporation, for example, might be, serving the customer. The goal number one for a school is serving the student. So everything is focused on how is this going to benefit the kids. So that's educational leadership. It's basically being a leader in a school.
And obviously you've taken a number of lessons learned from that time of being in school. And one kudos to you, because I've been home now at the recording of this for the listener. It's 31st of March. We are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Dominique's in New York City, which I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But I've been home with a 4.5-year-old and an 18-month-old for going on 2.5 weeks myself, day in, day out. So
you're a hero.
No, I was going to say congratulations to you for wanting to be a teacher, because I'm like, no heckin' way would I ever want to do this as a career.
Well, they go home after school, you see.
True. So my question is, what were some of the key lessons learned from that part of your career of, from being in educational leadership position, and how you brought that to the outside world, outside of that realm?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that I can think of is learning to give a lot of autonomy to people who reported to me, because teachers are alone in their classroom. So while you can lead as much as you want, and you can create a team spirit, and you can work with the team to build the department, the school. But at the end of the day, each teacher is going to do their own thing in the classroom. And so you have to be able to pull back sometimes and know that this is how this teacher is going to run their own space. And so the main lesson from that is really looking at, how do I continue outside of education to give that autonomy to the people I lead, because it's such an important part of having engaged people who want to grow, who want to learn, is that they're trusted, basically. So I think that's a really big one. The second thing is probably your favorite word, I think, is communication. And it's really just so important. Sometimes some of the schools where I've worked, the campus might be huge and you don't always see people. And so ensuring that you're communicating constantly and consistently, that you are supporting teachers or whoever your people are, but that you're supporting them by giving them certainty and communicating regularly, and sometimes even over communicating. So I think that's the second one. And the third one, I think, is just fun. Just make sure that you continue having fun, because it's so important, or rather, it's so easy, especially when you're in a school and there's crisis going on and there's so much, there's always people coming at you, asking you for things, etc., etc. It can be really easy to forget why you're there. And so sometimes you go back to the kids and you just talk to a couple of students and they'll tell you a funny joke, or they'll say something, and suddenly you remember, oh, that's why I love the education world. It's fun. And I think as leaders in any organization and in any industry, we have to constantly remind ourselves of that. Why are we here? And let's make it fun.
I love all three of those. The first one, I always often talk about delegation and the power of delegation. That's actually, when I get interviewed, one of my main speaking points. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is letting the teachers or the professors, whatever, run with their class, not being in their shorts. The end result is you want students and educated in subject X, Y, and Z. Here it is. You take care of X, you take care of Y, you take care of Z. Go. Let me know what you need from me to help you achieve your mission, right?
Yeah, I love that. Let me know what you need from me. I think that's the biggest thing, rather than assuming that we always know what people need.
Yeah, exactly. Or telling them what they need.
Yes, exactly.
Better, and quote unquote better, not actually better. The second bit, yeah. Obviously, you've poked at a few podcast episodes of mine. Communication is huge, because if communication doesn't exist, the organization just falls apart. It's
right.
Simple. But I like the third one, and I think that's something that probably doesn't get talked about, especially in the adult world. In big corporations and big organizations. Like, let's sometimes have fun. Let's enjoy what we do, because if you enjoy what you do day in, day out, then you're more likely to stick around during the bad times, i.e. right now.
Exactly. I have a short anecdote on that. So I work for a startup called Medley, and one of the things that we really are interested in is having coaches who bring play into their coaching sessions for our groups. And so we had one person come in and use Lego to play, and to start thinking about leadership skills, to start thinking about what the person or who the person wanted to be, and using Lego to bring that out. And it just had such an incredible impact on the participants in that session. And so I really think the idea of fun and the idea of play is necessary. It's one of those things that it's actually, there's a lot of research around that it's necessary for us to continue to have a healthy mind. We need to play and we need to have fun.
For me, I'm not sure if you picked this up or not, but by day I'm a Canadian Army officer. So and a big part of our culture and our play is sports and sports competitions. And we play a lot. We play a lot of sports, like easy. Once a week, we'll have morning PT sessions, which will actually be sports, or we'll occasionally shut work down for a full sports day, once or probably 2 to 3 times a year. Before we all go on Christmas break, there's always all the units, well, not all, but a significant number of the units will have various hockey games, and we'll play hockey. Right? How Canadian, right?
But I was going to say.
But the point is, it's that whole play aspect, and especially for us being military, competition, a little, sports are obviously a little bit more aggressive than Lego, but the point is still there. It's still play. It's still that team bonding. It's still that aspect of not being stuck in whatever the office looks like. Exactly.
It's just taking a break, taking a mental break, and taking that time out.
So now you're all about, coaching emerging leaders and helping groups, become high performers and becoming, powerful leaders. So from your standpoint, what are some of the things that kind of hold people back from hitting that, that level where they want to get at?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think the first thing, it comes back to mindset and who you are being. So I think a lot of times people get promoted because they were great at their job. They don't get promoted because they're a great leader. And so they step into that leadership position. And if they don't change their identity, if they don't change the way that they show up, it's going to be really, really hard for them to become a great leader. So I think the main obstacle is realizing and understanding that as you step into a leadership position, you step into a new identity. And it doesn't mean that you're no longer a part of the team. On the contrary, you're a major part of the team. But I think it does mean that there are decisions to be made that could be hard decisions, and you've got to make them. There's a vision that you need to either come up with or help the company or the organization bring together. And so just that mindset of stepping into that new identity can be really, really tough for new leaders. So I'd say that's the number one thing that I see.
If I can jump in there,
please.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I'll back you up with an anecdote of my own.
Yeah,
and that is, whenever I get promoted, now it's not that often, but whenever I get promoted, it takes some time. It takes some time for me to actually grow into a new rank. So my current rank is major. I remember in my first job as major, it took so I got promoted in July. It took up until the following January for me to actually grow into that rank and grow into that role.
Yeah. What helped you do that?
So we end up having so my job, I wasn't actually directly in charge of anybody because we change different types of jobs all the time. But I ended up getting put in charge of two junior captains, which is the rank below major, for a specific exercise. And that was actually the tipping point. I was like, okay. And I remember walking in and talking to my boss, who was a lieutenant colonel. And I was like, yeah, you know what? This made me transition. This task made me transition. And it was just that click, that change, right? Of, okay, I had some time to grow into the rank, and now I got put in charge of people who were the rank I was not even that long ago. And it takes that time. It takes that little bit of time, and it happens even on Civvy Street. And I like the part where you said people don't necessarily get promoted because of their leadership potential or their leadership skills. They get promoted of how good they were at their previous job. And the bulk of my coaching clients are those people.
Yeah. And the skills are so different, right? Whatever job you were doing.
The salesperson is the number one example.
Exactly.
My God. You sold a lot doesn't mean you can lead a team.
Exactly. So I think that transition is really the hardest thing. And I think once someone has that little click that you had, then they're able to see, okay, this is where I need to go. This is who I need to be. And now we can work on all the skills fully because they embrace the identity. But I think that's hard. That's really, really hard to get there.
It takes some time, right?
Yeah. And I think the next thing that that might hold people back is this idea of status and this idea of not wanting to. If you've been a team member for a while and then suddenly you become a leader and you have to lead others, they don't want to appear, oh, now I'm this person, and they still want to be part of the team in the same way, and they're not. And so I think there's that idea of that false, to me, idea of status changing, where of course it changes because you become a leader and you have to act in different ways, but you're still human and your relationships don't have to change. And I think a lot of people equate, the hierarchy, if we can call it that, with having to change your behavior as a human. And often I don't think that's the case. So I think that's a big one as well.
That's an interesting one. People thinking that they need to change their behavior, need to change who they are. Do you have any experience of why that comes out? The top is the loneliest place. Colin Powell said that once. But it doesn't have to be. Instead, you can find people to talk to, people to run ideas by, people to help you figure out solutions to the problems that you're facing right now as a leader. And see, I felt alone once, and I decided to start the podcast. And with the podcast, I decided that I needed to help people like you more. So that's why I started the Moving Forward Leadership Facebook group. Leadership skills for managers to be leaders, not bosses. You can find it at movingforwardleadership.com/group. And come join us. It's completely free for you to join us and talk leadership with us day in, day out. So check us out again at movingforwardleadership.com/group. Now back to the show. That's an interesting one. People thinking that they need to change their behavior, need to change who they are. Do you have any experience of why that comes out?
I think it's a construct, is that I think there's still in so many, especially in bigger corporations, there's still that big image of the leader as, the person who tells you what to do, rather than, coming at it from, let's say, a coaching perspective where you might ask questions to help others grow in their own time. And so I think it's still that perception, that vision of, oh, I'm a leader and now I have to tell everyone what to do. And I don't think that's the case at all. You're a leader just means that your job is now to get more people to grow and to, and to trust them, as we mentioned earlier. So I think that's where it comes from. It's just the image and the organization's culture as well. I think is a really big one. Depending on where you are, it's who you see, right? The models that you have, the models of leadership that you have are often what you're going to recreate.
That's an interesting topic that we can definitely dive into. And I totally agree with you. In so many organizations out there, the culture, it's huge, right? In all organizations, I should say, the culture is huge, but there's so many out there where the culture isn't necessarily the best one. And some people are pretty good at picking that up, but unfortunately they feel stuck. It's how it is here. So what advice do you have for those emerging leaders, like the ones that realize, the culture within the overarching organization isn't the greatest, but they like what they're doing. They like the team they're working for. They still want to progress, but at the same time, they kind of feel stuck, right? It's like there's aspects. So how can they best navigate that type of situation?
Yeah, I actually have, I worked with someone recently who was in exactly that situation.
Perfect.
Yeah. And one of the things that we talked about when this started coming up was who are your allies in the leadership team, either at your level or above you? Who are the other people who see that this culture might need to change a little bit, and how can you work with them to create opportunities for growth or opportunities to relate to each other in different ways? And so starting always, anytime you're going to lead change in any organization, I think you need to start with whoever your fans are, right? Go to the people who are going to embrace the change, are going to be excited about it, and start building from there. So I think that's the number one thing that you've got to do is, okay, who are the people who are going to support me, and what are the tiny little things that we can start implementing so that others see the positive effects of those changes and want to join in. It's baby step by baby step. But I think that's the first thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think showing up, getting promoted, and going, this place has got to change,
right,
is definitely not the best way to go forward, right? You definitely need to learn about the organization from the new standpoint where you're at.
yes.
You need to learn, figure out why things are the way they are, and you need to figure out what has been done in the past to try to fix them. And that's usually the framework I run with when I talk to my clients with, similar circumstance. But it's always great to have another point of view on that. But it's such a tricky position to be in.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what you say is absolutely right. I think listening at every level, and listening with your eyes as well. So listening to what's going on and learning. I think 100% learn about what's going on, learn about the culture, identify your people, make small changes. But for sure, learning and listening is so key.
So with emerging leaders, I think one of the things that eventually they realize is they have to start developing developing other leaders within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your viewpoint on the best ways for them to go about developing, other emerging leaders that are coming up and going through the organization?
Yeah, I talk about that a lot because it goes back. Well, first of all, it goes back to the idea of delegating, right? What we talked about it at the beginning, and that idea of knowing that you trust your people, knowing that it's okay to let people go and try things and fail. But in terms of developing people, there's sometimes a sense of that feeling of getting stuck, of like, well, there's no vertical growth possible in this company and I'm getting stuck. And so it's being able to see, okay, this person doesn't perceive a way up. Let me see how I can help them maybe choose a project that they'd like to work on. So give them that sense of autonomy. And in order to do that, I mean, I'm a coach. I think asking a lot of questions is always the best way to go. And instead of having a conversation where you might tell someone, this is what you need to do, asking them. So, and you mentioned that earlier, what can I do for you? This is where you are today. Let's create some awareness around what you're building here. And let's think about, well, what's going on with you right now? What are you happy about in this job? What do you feel needs to change? What part of your job is rewarding for you at this time? What's troubling you? What are you finding really challenging, and what are you not finding challenging? So asking all these questions to get a sense of where the person is, but also for that particular person to create some self-awareness around where they are. And then starting to think about, okay, well, where do you want to be? If you think about growth, what does that mean to you? Perhaps you can't get to that next level of, of a new job title or whatever it is, but what does growth mean to you at this point? What do you want to learn? Are there projects? Are there that you'd like to form? Are there responsibilities that you'd like to take on or to be a part of? And maybe is there something that you're curious about that you haven't explored in this position? So really helping people see where they want to go and where they want to grow. And once they've identified that, then think about, okay, how are we going to get there? Let's start thinking as a leader this time. I know where I can maybe put you on a project where you can help. I had one of the coaches say that she really would like to get involved with more leadership around coaching. And so I was thinking, well, how can I give her that opportunity? And one way was, okay, how about observing some of the sessions perhaps, so that you can then start thinking about it as a leader of those coaches. And so really I'm gonna stop talking in a second. But really, I think it's about, to grow others, you have to look at, okay, where are they today? Where do they want to be? What are the opportunities I can give that person? And as a leader, finding these opportunities for your people so that they can grow in areas that they're interested in.
Man, mic drop that.
Long answer.
Oh, that was gold. That was pure gold. For the listener, just hit rewind on about 2 minutes worth of talk there and re-listen to that. No, but
Sorry.
seriously, no. This is all about you. This isn't about me. This is all about you. That is perfect. My standpoint, that's perfect. Talking to the individual, seeing where they stand at first, and then going out and finding them. And I really like the idea of the baby steps, right? Not necessarily dumping them on, kicking them off the end of the dock or the deep end of the pool and saying sink or swim and away we go, but saying, okay, come observe, come see how I do this. You may do it slightly different with your own style, but end result is this, right?
Yeah.
And then giving them those opportunities and delegating the opportunities. And I always like, as I develop people, it's like, hey, even when you go on holidays, appoint someone to take on your responsibilities or part of your responsibilities. So many leaders think that they need to be the one that's constantly on the phone, checking their emails, even while they're on a week's worth of vacation, which don't turn into a week's worth of vacation. It just turns into a week worth of intermittent working.
Somewhere else.
Somewhere else,
Yeah, agreed. Another thing that came up as you were talking is mentoring. I think is so important in the workplace, and so it doesn't have to be you as a leader who mentors everyone, because that's not possible. But helping your team find a mentor can be such a great way to help them grow as well.
What are some of the great, the core aspects of mentoring and mentoring, other emerging leaders?
Yeah, it's really, I think, is sharing. So where coaching is really getting the person to think about themselves and where they want to be, and the mentoring aspect is much more supporting them by sharing advice, by sharing lesson learned in your own career, for example. So I'm very lucky that one of the founders of Medley, of the company I work for, supports me, and she helps me sometimes. She helped me fine tune my bio. Like, I know it sounds so little, but she helped me do that. And so mentoring is really much more about, let me help you with what I know and let me teach you, if you like, those skills. And so the combination of the two, of asking questions, of being curious about the person and helping them grow, and having that advice as well, having life experience from other points of view, is dynamite, as a combination.
Awesome. Dominique, I think we could go for hours. We may go for longer once we hit stop record, but I think for the listener, this is a great spot to basically wrap the show up here with that ideology of how, the power of mentoring and why it's so important for leaders and emerging leaders out there. Before I do hit stop, a couple last questions for you. One is one which I ask all the guests here at Moving Forward Leadership, and that is, according to you, Dominique Moss, what makes a great leader?
I'm going to say someone who's self-aware, someone who is able to make decisions, and someone who cares deeply about others.
Solid. Absolutely solid. Wouldn't expect anything less from you tonight. Final thing is, for the listener out there, how can they reach you? How can they find you, follow you, follow along with you on your journey? It's all about you now. Feel free to give yourself a shameless plug.
Thank you. The best way is really to either go through my website, dominiquemaz.com, or find me on LinkedIn. There aren't many of me with that name in New York City. So find me on LinkedIn. Do send a short message saying you heard me on the podcast, because otherwise I will ignore requests if I don't know who you are. But those are the two best ways. I'm not really on any other social media. I am, but I'm not very active. And I am going to say this out loud because it forces me to make the commitment. I'm working on a book, so look out for that.
Oh, awesome. And feel free to snippet of the book, or is it top secret?
It's still top secret because I'm still working on it.
Well, you know what? When you're done with that, maybe we'll have to have you back for round 2.
Sounds good. I'm going to give you the name of the framework in the book is Go Surf. So that's saying.
Sounds interesting. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming out and talking to me. But most importantly, thanks for talking to the listener. It's so much great information. No doubt that they will want more.
Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's all I got for you fine folks today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And most importantly, I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, remember R squared, S squared, right? Rate and review the show so that it gets a little bit noticed, a bit more. But most importantly, I can help more people, because that's what I'm here for. That's what my guests are here for, is to help more people become better leaders and not being bosses, right? So remember that. R squared, rate and review. S, share the show. Share this show with someone who you think can relate to the podcast as a whole and today's topic. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And you can do that via your podcast playing app of choice through movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, stop bossing and start leading. Take care now.